Mitakuyepi. Hello, everyone. I would like to talk about something that happens when we go through moments in our life that are very highly charged emotionally. They can include traumatic events. They can include events and situations where we feel very, very, very strong emotion. And even if it's something like happiness, and there is a possibility to experience too much of it. And when that happens, something occurs within us, and suddenly we feel like there's something missing. And so sometimes we end up making decisions that are kind of, they don't make too much sense, but at the time we think they make sense. And it's like there's something missing. Yeah, there's something missing in our lives, and sometimes we might try to look at something to replace it or to fill this emptiness, this void. And as a result, we may make choices that lead us further into this void, further into this emptiness. It might provide a temporary relief, like maybe we join a religion or we do some kind of a ceremony or something to try to find peace, and we're always looking out there, and the problem is it's here. This is where we need to go. But when we go through those experiences that lead us to feel empty, it's because something left us when we were experiencing this highly emotional event. Something left us. And that's what I would like to talk about with you now.
In the Star Knowledge, there's a belief that the soul has 4 parts. And when we're expressing an emotion way too much, or we experience something traumatic, this certain piece takes off. And so it always feels like something's missing. It feels like something is just, I don't know. Geez, I got, I put my clothes on straight today. I've got my shoes tied correctly. But something still feels out of place. It's something like that. And that's because this one piece left. They have to get it back. See, that's the danger of expressing an emotion too much, is that this piece could go. One result could be a mental illness, a personality disorder. That's just a possibility. That's not the reason why we get mental illnesses or personality disorders. There's many reasons for those things, but this can play a role. For example, the soldiers that went to Vietnam, they saw horrendous things, and so these boys came back, and just something was wrong. The ones who survived physically, something was wrong. So they had to go into ceremony and call that piece back. That's from the Star Knowledge. Whereas those that were not native, the way they felt is that, after this Vietnam War was over, some of these American soldiers moved back to Vietnam because they felt better there than they did in America. You see, that part of their soul took off. And it's there someplace. That's why they feel better when they're there. Like I said, this part of the soul that can leave. A lot of times this happens when you are feeling an emotion too strong. This part of the soul can leave. Or if you experience something really traumatic, it can leave at this time too, because it hits your emotional world and it just knocked something. So sometimes that happens. So what do? Well, you have to get it back. And how do you do that? That's done in ceremony. And especially we're living in these modern times where all kinds of crazy things are happening, that I think a lot of this part of their soul took off. And you see people go extreme in their beliefs to the point of, wow, those people disagree with us, so God says they must be destroyed. So every citizen of that country is a target. So that this is their justification for blowing up whatever. That is extreme. And most likely, that part of their soul is gone. A lot of times you think world leaders might be this way. They have no problem telling lies to the public because this part of their soul's gone. It's somewhere on this earth. It's a sad thing because it's part of spiritual development. Let's just take a look at somebody's life, for example. It could be anybody. And let's just say that they lost that part of their soul. They live on this earth, they try as best as they can. But what happens when they die? That is a really good question. Because Star Knowledge talks about reincarnation, talks about where the soul goes and stuff like that, but this part of the soul that took off is crucial to what happens next. So if it's gone, then what happens to that person? Can he or she continue its soul journey with that part missing? It is a question to think about. But like I said, in our way, we do have a ceremony to call that back. Even when we're little children, we're trained concerning losing this piece. Because little children can sometimes get too caught up in emotions, having fun, when there's no adults around to supervise. And it is possible that that piece will take off. So that's why at the end of the day, when the children are coming in for supper, that they did a certain thing with their mother to make sure that that piece comes back. So this is what used to happen a long time ago. And this ensured that that piece would be there, and that as we're becoming emotionally mature people, that this affects our soul development. And to make sure that we have development in our souls, we make sure that that piece is always there. So there's a certain thing that our mothers taught us, this thing when we were little children, so that we can do this every day to make sure it's there. Most people probably don't even know this. That even in the Lakota world, there's probably most people that don't even know that this used to happen. This is coming from Star Knowledge. I started thinking about this part of the soul that can take off. Because people from my generation, there was just very few of us that know about this activity that we were taught as children. I was taught this by my mother. I know this, yeah? But not everybody was. My friends who are my age, not all of them know about this practice. So my friends who started drinking for whatever reason, peer pressure or whatever, I started thinking, okay, what if that part of their soul took off? And now they're having children. How can you be an effective parent when that part of your soul is gone? Okay? Now, these children are not feeling 100% loved. And it's not because the mom and dad drink, if the dad is even around. It's not necessarily because of that. That does play a role. It does play a role, but there's another part. It's because part of that soul is missing. So she can't really effectively love her children. So they see this as normal because that's all they know. Now they grow up and the same thing happens to them. They lose that peace too because they weren't taught as children how to maintain that. And their mothers were not taught that either. Let me put this in a more linear way for those of you that are linear thinkers so you can understand this a little bit better. Is that let's take somebody who's my age, okay? And that person was not taught how to maintain this part of the soul, okay? So as a result, he loses it. Now he has a child. And since he doesn't know about this, the child doesn't know either. So the child is not really receiving that fullness of love that it deserves because its parent lost part of its soul. But the child doesn't know this. So that what the child receives, that child thinks that that's normal. Now, as he's growing up, see, he's never taught this either. He doesn't know about this part of the soul that we're supposed to learn how to maintain. So he ends up losing it. The child ends up losing it too. But he doesn't think anything of it because he grew up this way. So now that child is 30 years old today. Now that child has children and it never learned how to maintain this peace, just like its parents. So it cannot teach its child the same thing. So you have a child, parent, and grandparent. None of them were taught how to maintain this part of the soul. So all three generations lose it. And it continues. And I think that has a really big role in why there's a weird energy on the reservation. Not only on the res, but in this world. Now, in Lakota, the word for children or a child is wakanja. It has the word waka in it, which is a sacred, life-giving energy, is what that is. That's waka. The reason why the word waka is in there is because of this thing that we're supposed to do, that we're supposed to maintain this part of the soul. And then we teach our children to do the same thing. So they teach their children the same thing. This is why that word is wakanja. So now you know what wakanja means. Now you know how come it has that meaning. Now you know the meaning behind it. They're supposed to learn to maintain something that concerns this part of the soul that can leave. And I think that since this is not being taught, this is why things are really messed up. Not only on the res, but in this world. See, this is a star knowledge belief. And I was very fortunate in that my mother knew this, so I could learn it. This is a very, very ancient custom. It doesn't come from the Lakota ceremonies. It has nothing to do with the pipe. This custom is hundreds of thousands of years old. And this is part of living that star knowledge way, taking care of the four parts of yourself and finding peace in your life and learning from difficulties and enjoying blessings, communicating in a healthy way, receiving communication in a healthy way. The only way you can do that is by maintaining that part of your soul that can wander off. If you let that go and you don't get it back, you're going to have problems. So that's a really old belief. Yeah? A lot of people don't know this one. And this is what the churches called evil. They said this is from the devil. And this is why we are heathens. This is why we are savages. That was their excuse for trying to stop us from believing these kind of things. See, the thing is that a lot of times those who know about this, they don't know the reason why. They just do it because it is tradition. But they don't know the reason why. But they know it's important. So they do this with their children. They teach this to their children. This is part of parenting.
The soul has 4 parts. And sometimes when we go through something that is very strong emotionally, and this could include very traumatic moments that we have experienced in our lives, one part of the soul will leave. And so we always feel like we're missing something. No matter what we do, something doesn't feel right. In ancient times, we were taught that we can call that part back by standing at the entrance of our home. We say our name, and then we say, Wana Wagli, which means, I arrived home now. We say this to the 4 directions, so that no matter where this soul piece is, it will hear it, and then it will come back to you. The date that I'm making this video is the 6th of March, 2025. And when you look what's happening in the world, sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes it's daunting. It's stress. It's pressuring. And anytime we get that kind of a feeling, we can do this. We can call our name 4 times. And after each time we say our name, we say, Wana Wagli. I have arrived home. This can help us to nurture our foundation of taking care of ourselves, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. We can think of our families, our friends, our relatives, all relatives, including the plants and animals and that which moves and grows, the universe, that every time we call our name, we think of inside of us. Everything being connected, everything working together so that we can live. Our hearts and our lungs and things like that. That all of what's inside of us is working together. And when we call our name, we say our name, this is nurturing that too. And we think of that. And then that helps us to be grounded so that we can live our lives in a healthy way, with peace in our mind, with love in our mind. So when we go about our day, we live in that way, in this nice way, treating people in a healthy way, communicating in a healthy way, receiving communication from others in a healthy way, interpreting it in a healthy way, showing respect to that which we don't necessarily agree with, and we can still have peace. So doing this little ceremony, calling your name, that really helps. You listen to your breath as you say that, as you say your name. Look within yourself. Think of it. Visualize all these things in your inner universe inside of you, that they're working together so that you can live. So when you call yourself, that nurtures that, like I said. And by nature, we're able to project this activity around us, so then we can think in a more peaceful way, less stress, and helping one another, teaching one another, comforting one another, loving one another. That regardless of what's happening, that we can choose to see the world in a way, in a light that shows there's hope. It begins within each one of us, that we can still treat our fellow human beings, nature, plants, everything, that we can still treat everybody with respect and with the spirit of helping, learning from one another, and we can still get through this storm. The storm will pass. The storm will move. And calling our name will help us get through that. Because if we get caught up into that, turn on the news and oh no. We turn on the news and we're walking with that storm, and it's like that. We think that storm is never going to go away. That's because we're walking with it, because we're not being grounded. Yeah, when we ground ourselves, the storm passes because we're standing like that buffalo against all storms. And it will pass. But to stay grounded, we can do that. And this activity, what I'm talking about, can help us with that. And we can do this as a group. And we all get together. Let's sing a song. There's a really good song called Chankuluta Omanie. And the words are Lechia Chankuluta Omanie. Lechia Chankuluta Omanie, Omanie. Then there's a vocable Hey oh hey. Mitra kola. Oi oki pielo. Then more vocables. Hey ah hello hey oh. And this song means I'm walking upon the red road. By the way, the red road is the road of life. Red represents life. About everything on this planet in this physical sense has blood, and that blood is red, and that's life. That's why we call the red road the road of life. I'm walking upon the red road. My friend, this is a good place to be. When we sing this song, we think of these things that I just talked about. And when we sing songs, we sing it 4 times through. And at the end of this song, we call our name. And then we say Wanawagli. And we do this 4 times too. We can do that as a group. So let's do that. And if you want to sing along with me, you can, or just follow the words or sing to yourself. And at the end of the song, as soon as you hear me say my name, you say your name, followed by the words Wana Wagali. You're going to be calling your soul. You're calling your soul back. We do this 4 times for the reasons that I mentioned earlier in this video. Here we go. Lechia Chankuluta Omanie. Lechia Chankuluta Omanie, Omanie. Hey oh hey. Mitra kola. Oi oki pielo. Hey oh hey oh hey oh. Lechia Chankuluta Omanie. Lechia Chankuluta Omanie, Omanie. Hey oh hey. Mitra kola. Oi oki pielo. Hey oh hey oh. Lechia Chankuluta Omanie. Lechia Chankuluta omanie, omanie. Hey, oh, hey. Mitakola. Oio ki pielo, hey, oh, hey, lo, hey, oh. Lechia chankuluta omanie. Lechia chankuluta omanie, omanie. Hey, oh, hey. Mitra kola. Oio ki pielo. Hey, oh, hello, hey, oh. David, wanawagli. David, wanawagli. David, wanawagli. David, wanawagli. Oechetuelo. That's the way it is. Thank you very much for listening. And everything that I said was based on Lakota Star Knowledge. And in our way, everything is a circle. Yeah? Everything goes like a sphere. There's no ending. And that's why in our language, we do not have a word for goodbye. Instead, we say until next time, which in Lakota is Doksha Ake.